Next up, we see Triple H and China come out, and they bring out the returning Sean Waltman. And, are we not allowed to say China?
Why?
I don't know. You said yes when I said it.
Oh, because you mentioned Triple H's name, which just made me happy.
Oh, hey, Hunter. Oh, he's not listening. He only watches.
They all listen.
Ross referred to him as the Kid on commentary, and he'd of course later go by XPAC, but he wanted 6-Pac. And apparently the WWF suing WCW for supposedly stealing characters and licenses created by Titan that were almost exactly the same name worked against them here. And they decided not to do that. So X-Pac is the name. He got a pretty strong shoot style promo on WCW here saying Hogan sucks and something like, you better not stop short or Eric Bischoff would be so far up your ass. He'd know what you had for breakfast. And he insinuates that Hall and Nash are being held hostage or else they'd be right here with us. What did you plan of this script before it goes out there? Probably, I guess I should say without question, Sean Waltman's most famous promo ever.
I'd say that a lot of it was written in conjunction with Vince Russo, and Russo knew a lot of what he was going to say. The idea behind it was to be edgy, to be real, say those things that nobody expects you to say. And when Sean was coming in and we were trying to come up with names for him, the reason JR referred to him as Kid, because for a long time, was going to be his name, coming back and just be the Kid. And eventually they ended up on X-Pac from DX and from 6-Pac. And that's how he came up with X-Pac from there. But our working name with us was the Kid.
Meltzer would write, Waltman, fired 3 weeks earlier by WCW as a pawn in the tension between his friends, Hall and Nash, and the WCW power base of Hogan and Bischoff, agreed to terms about 1 week before his WWF debut for a 4-year contract with a maximum of 15 working dates per month and a downside guarantee of $300,000 to $350,000 per year, a solid raise from the $250,000 he'd been earning with WCW on a contract that still had about 18 months remaining. Apparently, Waltman opened these negotiations with Jim Ross and Ed Kaufman at the WWF almost immediately after receiving his surprise FedEx termination sent by Nick Lambros of WCW to his house in Minneapolis, where he was at the time recuperating from a broken neck. The firing was such a spur-of-the-moment deal that later that same evening, the announcers, who weren't even aware of what was going on, were still plugging him for public appearances for first day on sale dates that weekend. The original offer allegedly would have been a huge cut from his WCW salary and was only about half of the offer that they come back with. And that first offer sent a clear message to many in WCW that were unhappy about their positions that while they could jump and go to the WWF, they'd be guaranteed a lot less money and more dates to do so. Bischoff indicated to Nash he'd be willing to rehire Waltman, but over that 2-week period after termination, not one member of the WCW office ever contacted him with the apparent belief that he needed to call them. Waltman was naturally bitter about the company and Bischoff in particular's treatment of him, since this came on the heels of several months earlier where Bischoff had fired him, and he'd been known to tease firings to get people's attention, and being told to sort of tone down his act with the crotch chopping and bronco riding as WCW was trying to distance itself from the more vulgar WWF. His attorney at the time is Barry Bloom, and he still had a tenuous relationship with the WWF going back to the Jesse Ventura lawsuit, and he steered Waltman towards Elliot Pollock to handle the deal. And as time went on, the WWF drastically changed its offer, and both sides came to an agreement on March 23rd for a March 30th start. So he signed the contract the Monday before WrestleMania, started the Monday after WrestleMania, and Meltzer sort of freestyles that a lot of this may have been because he changed attorneys. Is that true? Did Vince sort of have a hard on for Barry Bloom during this time and was just going to be a bastard to deal with as a result?
No, and Vince wasn't doing the dealing. It was Jim Ross, and Barry was where Barry got himself into a predicament with the company was Barry represented people on both sides. So like Barry represented Goldberg, Barry represented a lot of those guys, and he would work both sides against the middle. He was also representing Eric Bischoff at the time, I believe. So when you're representing the guy that's doing the hiring, and you're representing the guys that he's hiring. It was a bit of a conflict of interest, and he and JR did not get along. He happens to be JR's agent now, just for the record, as well as Chris Jericho, Mick Foley's, and a few others. And through the years, we've actually had a pretty good relationship with Barry. But at this time, to say it was strained would probably be an understatement because of the tenuous situation with WCW. So Elliot Pollock was also Brian Pillman's attorney. We had had some experience with Elliot. But Elliot, we knew. I mean, everybody, it's an incestuous business. And everybody's cross-pollinating somewhere. So we knew everybody was talking. And the thing about it is there were guys, for example, The Rock, Stone Cold Steve Austin, a lot of guys that had their downside guarantees that were making 5, 6, 7 times what their downside guarantee was. It becomes a moot point. However, for budgeting purposes and where it's going to be, your downside guarantee is what it is. And a lot of guys didn't understand that had been under the WCW guaranteed money whether you work or not.